favorite film actually is Billy Elliot. Some of you may have seen it. It's about a little boy who dances, and he's like 11 years old. He dances because that's who he is. That's his soul. That's his personality. He expresses himself just organically, spontaneously through dancing. And his father's a coal miner in England and wants him to box and be a man. So he sends him off to boxing class, and Billy's immediately attracted to the ballet class at the far end of the gym, and ends up in the ballet class, and the teacher sees great promise for him, and the whole story is his journey about trying to be who he is, this young boy, in a world that is both encouraging him and discouraging him. And about how each of us, I think, at least for myself, and maybe that's why I identified with the film so much, grew up as a dreamer and a child where all things seemed possible. And I learned during the course of growing up, through lessons I was taught, the censures I was given, that not everything is possible, and there are things that you, yeah.
I was just raising my hand, letting you know I have a question after you're done.
Oh, okay.
My fault.
But he does have an opportunity to audition for the Royal Ballet in London, and he dances wonderfully, and they like his dancing because it's so completely organic. But then they ask him questions about it, and Billy's answers are always, I don't know, because he doesn't think about dancing; he just dances, and it looks as though the panel is not going to accept him into the school because he doesn't look bright enough, perhaps, to learn whatever it is they might want to teach him. And he goes to leave the room, but thanks to a wonderful screenwriter, God bless the screenwriter, one of the panelists says, Billy, what does it feel like when you dance? And he turns back to them and he says, I don't know. And he turns away, and then he turns back again and he says, I disappear. It's like flying, like a bird, like fire, like electricity. That's it, electricity. Because for Billy Elliot's experience, dancing is Billy Elliot being in what McKay Chisholm-Tye calls the flow, and I'm sure you've heard of it being the creative flow, where whatever the activity is that you're doing it, you've gotten to the point where actually you are not doing the activity is doing you. And that's what McKay Chisholm-Tye describes as the peak human experience, and it can be in any activity that we have. It can be, I see it, there's a writer back here, or is he an artist?
Yeah.
You're doing a little doodling. Well, if you just caught him out of the corner of your eye, you can see that in many ways that doodling's doing him. I mean, his pen is moving lightning fast, and yes, he's engaged in the process. But wouldn't you own that at times that pen is actually just?
It depends. It comes and goes.
It comes and goes, and I think that's the way it is with all of us in that experience. But if you're a musician, you played a musical instrument, there are times where the music has played you, and those are the best times. If you played sports, there are times where you know the sport is playing you because you're like all of a sudden you're flying, you're floating, you're exceeding your potential. During March Madness, I don't remember the name of the player who's now a color commentator for the games, but they showed footage of him. I think he played for Xavier, but they showed footage of him in a game like 25 years ago, where he scored like 45 points and was just flying up and down the court. And they asked him, how he, how it felt, and he said, I don't know. He said, honestly, when it was over, I don't know what it was. He definitely had the peak experience that day because the game was playing him, he wasn't playing the game. And so he just went on this little journey. Well, we as the audience members in the movie theater want to take that little journey, and it makes sense that the best work and moments for an actor working in front of the camera is when the actor's taking that little journey too. That little journey into the moment, yeah.
You're talking about taking the journey and everything else, but then I'm sitting here at the film festival and I see there's like a lot of alternatives to an actual basic character arc structure. You obviously know from me like Robert McKee and stuff like that. Would you say it is possible to still follow that with an alternative to the basic paradigm?
Yes, because, well, yes, because as I said at the very beginning before you came, I think the real key to this process is to be totally present in the moment. So as far as the arc and the story and the character development and what's happening experimentally and, is the filmmaker's craft, that really ultimately at its best, the actor needs to be present in the moment and totally aware as to what's going on. And it has much more to do with the actor's presence than it has to do with their acting. And just to cite, for example, and this is a more traditional story again, the Bourne trilogy, which I do love. I absolutely do love that trilogy. I think they're so much fun and they're so exciting. But it wasn't until I was in the movie theater watching the Bourne Ultimatum, right, the last one, that I really focused in on Matt Damon and watched his work. And if you go back and watch any of those movies, Matt Damon doesn't do anything in the heart of that film. I mean, he does exactly what he needs to do in terms of the action, the business, the tasks that he has to do. And he is doing nothing to generate drama. Because he's on the run or on the hunt, one or the other, his focus is intense. His awareness is extremely heightened, and he's very present in the moment. And it's the demand for that character to be present in the moment because he never knows what's going to happen from one moment to the next. But beyond being totally alert and present in the moment, Matt Damon doesn't do anything. And even like when his wife dies, it's very simple. And I give something away. It's the filmmaker, it's the way it's shot, it's the music more than Matt Damon even. He's aware, he's present, he's vulnerable in the moment. But in no way could you say that he was hamming it up. He couldn't be accused of that because his work is so extremely simple at the heart of this movie. And here's a movie where there are 1,000,001 things going on all the time. And so effectively that you might not even notice his performance, which is the way it should be. You shouldn't notice his performance. That's the best. Which is kind of ironic. You think, well, really, I think sometimes they give Oscars to people who give rather showy performances, when in fact, for my mind, the best performances are the ones that the audience really doesn't notice at all. So they don't necessarily get the heightened attention.